All right, cool. Yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you very much for making it out today. I'm going to briefly talk about Namada today and sort of what Namada does, why we decided to build it, and sort of what the road to mainnet actually looks like. And so with this, actually time, okay, yes, I have time, great. So let's get started with why. And I think this is sort of an underappreciated aspect. I think currently in the space, full transparency is generally a massive blocker for actual mass adoption, because it makes a bunch of use cases very impossible to do. For example, no reasonable human being is going to want all their medical information, like what they pay at a hospital or what they pay at a pharmacy, to be put on a transparent ledger where the neighbors can sort of figure out what they're doing on an everyday basis, right? And so I think this is really a notion, if we want to get towards mass adoption, or like we want to actually get real world use cases onto these systems outside of shitcoin trading, I think information flow control and sort of shielded actions is just going to be something that's absolutely required, because without it, I think we'll never get to a point where most people will feel comfortable actually using these systems for sort of real life things. And so really, Namada is about the freedom to reveal. It's not that it's private. It's just, it's not by default transparent. You have the option, everyone has the individual option. They have the freedom to reveal the information that they choose to reveal to the rest of the world, right? And for example, this can mean very simple things where when I file my annual taxes, I may want to disclose certain information based on my local laws in Switzerland, because I'm based in Switzerland, right? And so Namada really is about restoring the freedom to reveal. And I think this is a very important point to keep in mind when you think about Namada. Let's quickly talk about why a lot of these things are quite challenging to actually build. Yeah. What do you I'm just curious, you can shout out the answers. What do you currently do to not reveal all your information when using crypto? Actually, maybe let's start with a simpler question, like who here actually regularly uses like transfers on Ethereum or Cosmos or Osmosis? Who here is actually like sort of on a, I guess, weekly basis? Great, that's like 6 people and kind of terrifying as a result. But maybe it's 10, I don't know. Still. Okay, what do you then do in order to actually prevent a lot of the data leakage? Container cache, interesting. Centralized exchanges, the OG mixers of the world, yeah. Okay, just effectively statistically breaking the links, okay. Just for the audience, the rest of the audience, I think you probably know what you're doing. You have to be, this doesn't really work at scale. You can always statistically backlink unless you actually go via something like a centralized exchange or something like Container Cache or actually Zcash. Okay, so by default, currently, everything you do on-chain is visible for everyone in perpetuity. These systems will never go away. If you like pay a single hospital bill, this will exist in 200 years from now. That record is readable to everyone. And so the other reason why this is challenging, people want tokens, not blockchains. And what I actually mean by this is people want to use their own arbitrary fun things, right? Like everyone wants to, no one wants to like have their privacy model or like their data protection model tied to a specific asset. This is, I think, sort of a really big challenge historically, that you always had to like opt into like use ZEC if you wanted any sort of like freedom to reveal capabilities. You had to use ZEC and Zcash. You couldn't use it with your fun NFT project, right? Or your own individually issued token. And so I think a very important design constraint here is actually we need to build systems that are capable of allowing arbitrary assets to receive uniform benefits here. We can't tie functionality to specific assets, because it's going to be very, very difficult to sort of like keep reissuing all these assets or keep rebuilding all these systems for all the assets that people may want to use them with. And the other thing historically it's too expensive and too complicated. As in, you have to set up a new wallet, you have to like effectively trade in and out of ZEC in order to get reasonably good privacy guarantees. This is all changing right now, mostly because proofs are very fast on mobile. We finally have an interoperability stack with IBC where actually assets can flow between many different systems. We're divorcing the assets from the underlying protocols. So there can be a couple of protocols that provide very specific things, and then people can bring the assets that they actually want to use with these architectures, with these protocols, to those protocols that fulfill that need. Yeah, just a quick recap. We're getting there in leaps and bounds, but at the moment, we're still sort of, a lot of this tech is still in its infancy. So briefly, what is Namada actually? And I think most people here probably already know this, but I'll still briefly go through this. Namada is the shielded asset hub. You can really think of it this way. It's Osmosis, for example, is the liquidity hub, right? Like it's the place where you can trade within the ecosystem. Namada is the place that does one thing and only one thing, which is it just provides the freedom to reveal capabilities to any asset you want to bring to it. It doesn't provide anything else. It just does shielded transfers. That's it. But asset agnostic shielded transfers, where it doesn't matter if you hold Chihuahua coin or Atom or USDC from Noble. Namada just provides the single capability of shielding capabilities to you. So you can shield any IBC asset, including NFTs. And here, this is actually a very important point. Namada has a unified shielded set, which means that low volume but high value assets like NFTs actually inherit the guarantees of the rest of the set, right? So like, as an external observer, I can't tell whether someone is transacting in Atom or Osmo or a bad kit. I can see that someone is interacting with the system, but I don't know specifically which asset they're using. And this is a fundamentally important thing under this model, which we're currently running into, which is there will be thousands and hundreds of thousands of new assets sort of being issued on a daily basis, right? And so we need to provide uniform guarantees to assets that may only appear in a year from now. Yes, and the other cool thing is you can be rewarded, or Namada has the capability to reward people for protecting their data or protecting your own data with shielded set rewards, which is something I think I'll talk to a little bit about in the road to Mainnet. And yeah, really, Namada is your gateway towards shielded actions. To the shielded interchain, right? I should stick to the terminology. Namada is your gateway to the shielded interchain, the ability to execute many different things that are possible right now within the interchain ecosystem, but in a shielded way. So, right, you can, for example, something that we've spoken about at some point in the past, you can do shielded swaps using Osmosis. So you can sort of bolt on the shielding capabilities to the rest of the interchain stack. Yeah, and you can shield the interactions, but you can also really shield your arbitrary messages. This is, it's a very flexible protocol where whatever you'd like to shield, you can. So maybe a quick TLDR. So why is Namada actually important? It restores the freedom to reveal. Why is it challenging? Well, because the status quo is terrible right now, and I think no one in their right mind is going to use this outside of shitcoin trading. And you also want to give people the capability to bring their own assets to a unified shielded set. And currently, this is still very expensive and a little bit complicated. But this is changing pretty rapidly. So Namada, really think of this as the shielded asset hub. You can shield any asset over IBC. In the future, you can also shield assets that come via effectively IBC connections to Ethereum ecosystems, for example, to rollups that come from NEAR. I think we're clearly seeing the trend here that IBC is by far the best messaging standard. And I gave a talk about this the other day. IBC is an interface, not an intermediary. So I think a lot of people will start adopting IBC because it's just a well-spec'd protocol, really. So Namada, anything you can move over IBC, you can shield it in Namada, including NFTs. and you can be rewarded for protecting your data this way. And really, it's the gateway to the shielded interchain. It's the capability to add actually good shielding capabilities into the rest of the interchain ecosystem. So what's next? And here it's important to understand the way Namada is actually going to be launched is it's the same way that we launched the Cosmos Hub back in the day. It is, there's a proposal, and this may change because there's not a central entity that actually launches the network. There's open source software, and the validator community at some point can decide to stand up the real network and actually start running a mainnet. This is not someone is launching a thing and then the thing is now available to the rest of you. It's really like the community has to decide to stand up the network because they consider the software stable enough. There is a suggestion though, which I think from a safety perspective is a good idea to sort of enable features over time very slowly, which is actually also what we did with the Cosmos Hub back in the day. So the first thing is really, this is sort of block party, this is just launch. The validator community can decide to stand up the network, can accept the proposal here, and then at that point, only proof of staking as well as governance will be enabled. And at that point, the thing, Namada is fully live, it's fully decentralized from the get-go. There's no central entity that has any special control over Namada at this point. From my perspective, I think the next serious step should be to start thinking about enabling staking rewards and public goods funding, mostly because you want to increase stability of the system and you sort of like want to slowly ramp up the security of it. This will have to go via governance votes, so the validators and community members will have to vote on chain whether to enable staking, whether to progress to a staking party. Afterwards, I would suggest to start by enabling sort of IBC as well as asset shielding of assets that came over IBC. Everyone that deploys IBC, please deploy rate limits for IBC. So this is also going to come. I would suggest we should have reasonable limits on IBC transfers here, as in total amount of assets that can flow over these IBC bridges. Namada uses the IBC stack written in Rust. So we should be extra careful here as a community to not, I think it's a bad idea if in the first week, more than $1,000 kind of flows into an ecosystem. You want to ramp this up slowly so that you can figure out mistakes as they happen. And then I think the last step, or the second to last step, is to actually start enabling shielded set rewards, incentivize other assets to flow into the ecosystem. So for example, this could be Osmo, USDC, this could be Atom. This is really, again, it's a community proposal, and I think there needs to be a community conversation around what kind of rewards we actually want to enable here, and for what reason. And then I think the last step should be to enable the transfers of a native asset. I really do think this is a good idea to not enable transfers of native assets here, purely from a security perspective. You want to give the network a while to really become stable before you want to start allowing changes to the security model of the network. Maybe in terms of where we are right now, there is the Shielded Expedition is currently happening. It had 144,000 active users. In the Genesis block, it was fucking terrifying because I don't think anyone has ever really tested Comet BFT with loading a 144,000 line Genesis file with that many accounts. It did work. The network is currently running. It now went through, I think, the first hard fork upgrade actually, and is run by around 200 validators, many of whom are actually in the room here. And again, the current Shield Expedition is very similar to Game of Stakes, if you remember this. And we're doing the Shield Expedition for exactly the same reason we did Game of Stakes back in the day, to really allow the software to be battle tested in as close to real life as we can prior to the actual mainnet. So please join the Namada community. It's all about restoring the freedom to reveal. And here you can find the Discord and the Twitter. And if you have any questions, you can catch me afterwards. Thank you very much.